Rewind-A-Dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from Jon and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rewind-A-Dynamite. It is John Pollock here alongside Wai Ting. A very busy night. How are you, Wai?
I'm doing all right, John. Yeah, a little bit tired, not going to lie, but I'm doing good otherwise.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm pretty exhausted myself, so maybe the show won't be that great.
Yeah, turn it off now. It's going to be awful. Listen to some other podcasts. Like this is not going to be a good one. I have a feeling.
Go listen to them. We're going to sign off. Dynamite had a good promo. That's it. That's my review.
All right.
Could you review Dynamite in one sentence, Way?
Okay. Wrestling.
That's not a review. That's a statement.
Okay, so stupendous.
Okay, that's all right. That's more of a review, I guess. All right.
I mean, you try it. Like one word. That's really tough.
I said MJF had a great promo.
That's not one word.
I said one sentence. I gave you a sentence.
Oh, sentence. Okay.
Yes. I was giving you some leeway. I don't expect you to have to just reduce things to one word. Anyway, lots to talk about tonight. Lots of news coming out of Dynamite. Lots of news coming out in the world of wrestling. But before we get into all of that, I do want to alert everybody to our latest edition of Rewind-A that dropped on Tuesday night. The fanfare has just been overwhelming for WrestleMania 27, a show that turned 11 years old this year, from the Georgia Dome in Atlanta, Georgia. A show largely saved by The Undertaker and Triple H, and not so much from Jerry Lawler and Michael Cole. But we spent about 2 hours going through this show, chatting with Mahmoud El-Mardi, our Espresso executive producer from halfway across the world. And by the end of this review, he said, you know what? I'm coming over to the United States right now. As we may be speaking, he might be just landing in the U.S.
Yeah, a globetrotting Espresso executive producer, Mahmoud. But yeah, he chose WrestleMania 27, and he immediately regretted it after watching it himself because he realized that, this unfortunately is not one of the better WrestleManias. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing to talk about, because in fact, there is plenty to talk about between the two matches that you mentioned, John, and also, of course, this was when The Rock made his return to host the show. And, we'll discuss how it may have impacted, benefited, or maybe decreased attention towards The Miz versus John Cena in the main event. So plenty to discuss as well. Edge's last match before his first retirement against Alberto Del Rio, and also dashing Cody Rhodes wrestling Rey Mysterio in Atlanta, no less. So lots to talk about on this podcast. I encourage you all to check it out.
Yes, as always, we go into the various news of that particular week leading into WrestleMania, and of course, all that surrounded WrestleMania weekend. So there you go. Check it out. PostWrestlingCafe.com is where you can join and listen to that. And we will be back this Friday night with Rewind a SmackDown. On top of that, your post-daily news updates go live every weekday at 1 Eastern. Today we had Benno on the show to chat about Ring of Honor's 20th anniversary, which occurred on Wednesday, going into Ring of Honor essentially from day one and the many changes the company has undergone. It has been quite the road over the past 20 years of where they arrive at now. So a great chat as always with Benno from Grapple and the British Wrestling Experience, and discussing all the latest news as well. But let a few hours go away. Brand new cycle of news to discuss.
Well, what happened? Catch us up.
Well, we had quite a bit on tonight's Dynamite, but separate from that, we had the announcement that not just Timothy Thatcher, but Jon Moxley are going to be involved in Josh Barnett's Bloodsport on March the 31st. So we'll get to see Tough Timmy.
Fantastic.
Post NXT run. Returning to the independent scene, and will be part of Bloodsport. And Jon Moxley, that's always something of significance. I think having a Moxley level of attraction as part of your Bloodsport event.
And to see him get to wrestle a slightly different style You know, I mean,
Sure.
we all know how great of a brawler he is. And I mean, within Bloodsport, I mean, he largely kind of sticks to some of that. But I mean, he also trains a lot of MMA, and it's a chance for him to do some of that. And I'm kind of curious to see who either of them are going to face. You know, for me, Timothy Thatcher is probably the more interesting one because has he been wrestling? Has he been doing much of anything?
No. I think this is like the first dates that he has had announced since his release, if I'm correct.
Yeah, and I think, you know, anybody coming off of a WWE run where they were released, and I feel like they tend to come back with a bit of a chip on their shoulder, and so a bit of extra attention is going to be put on Timothy Thatcher, who I believe has already, you know, participated in prior blood sports, but I mean, it's a style that's really tailor made for him, so I definitely look forward to that show.
There's also this video that is circulating from this interviewer, the official Jared Myers YouTube channel. And this guy, Jared Myers, got to chat with one Jeff Hardy at one of his recent concerts. And on this video, which is like several days old, but I think it's only getting kind of attention today, it seems like. And on this video, I mean, Jeff Hardy makes it pretty clear he's going to AEW. And I don't know if he realizes he is being filmed here, but it's because he's not really speaking to the camera, but maybe it was the style they were going for here. But I mean, that's what comes out of his mouth.
Yeah. So I'll be clear. I haven't seen the whole thing yet. I haven't really gotten into it. I mean, it looks like I'm literally scrubbing through it right now because I've only seen the portion that everybody's talking about, but I'm scrubbing through the opening and it looks like he's well aware that there's a camera on him, but unfortunately no microphone. And if you've ever been backstage at a concert or anything like that,
it's very faint. Like it's very hard to make this out, but it's
but you do clearly hear the words, "I'm going to AEW." I'm so excited. So, I you know, this is hardly an official announcement, but at least there's definitely more than, you know, something to it.
Yeah, and I mean, like the teases have been there. I don't think this is shocking anybody either. But there you go. There's a video that is circulating, and then as well worth noting that going into tonight's show, Tony Khan and Tony Schiavone got together for one of their an ode to their past Impact commercial spots and did a promo for Dynamite tonight. And Tony Khan noting that he is working very hard on this deal he is putting together that was teased last week, and states that he cannot put a date or time on it like he could with the first dance, but is positioning it as something big that'll be great for the wrestlers and great for everyone, but obviously very vague. And Tony Khan is very good with his teases of big things coming, and that's what is being hinted at here. Which this sounds much less of a signing and more so some kind of deal that is being structured.
Was it on last week when he was teasing something for this week on Busted Open?
He was saying that he is working on something big. He doesn't know when he will have it done. He's hoping to have it done next week, but he didn't state that it was like completed or even that it would be revealed this week.
Okay.
In this promo, it's coming, Way. This is the Veer Mahan of announcements.
Clearly, you know, like teasing something coming, teasing something big has worked out for Tony Khan and you know, Dynamite ratings in the past. And at this point, are we simply going to keep something lingering as a potential surprise that can happen at any moment?
Yes. Like, listen, this is what promoters are supposed to do. They are supposed to create hype and anticipation and always have you excited for something. Like that's what the role is. And Tony Khan is one
but you also have to deliver. You know, and I mean, and I think AEW has been successful with their teases so far because they have delivered. So yeah, I'm awaiting to see what this one could be.
So let's get into the show itself, because there was a lot to this 2-hour show. Immediately, we kick things off with the Tag Team Battle Royal with a spot at stake at the Revolution pay-per-view in the three-way. So we've got the Young Bucks, Red Dragon, Santana and Ortiz, FTR, the Best Friends, Butcher and the Blade, Private Party 2.0, Silver and Reynolds, and the Gun Club. They have a lot of tag teams, dude. There are a lot of talented teams, and when you see them all together in the ring, it hits you in the head of just like the depth here that they have. And, you know, quite honestly, they don't get to put a whole lot of emphasis on a lot of these teams. Like in FTR, it was like welcome to see them in something extended. Like I thought tonight was like the most we have really gotten to see like Kyle O'Reilly get to just go in the like last 5-10 minutes of this match.
It's very true. Yeah. I mean, by far the deepest tag team division, I think, in all of professional wrestling. And there's only so much airtime, unfortunately.
Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy are out with Christian Cage, so they're watching from the stage. The rules of this are that both members of the team have to be eliminated. So we're having some eliminations early. The Best Friends lured in the Butcher, sent him over. There was a dragon screw by Fish, delivered to Chuck Taylor, and then a boot by Kyle O'Reilly. At one point, Matt Hardy saved...
The boot to the Canadian, huh?
That's right, the boot from the Canadian. It was to Taylor, but yes. Matt Hardy then saved Cassidy, propped him up, and then he's knocked down by a silver enziguri. And Matt is doing the delete chant, which he had done during the Elevation tapings before they went live. And so the crowd was already kind of tuned to do the delete chants. And then we'd see Matt later in the night doing the delete. So he just walks off again after Private Party is eliminated and abandons them. Santana then sends Matt Lee and Jeff Parker over. The Bucks eliminate Ortiz, and Santana goes for a cabrada and is hit with a double super kick upside down by the Young Bucks. They had a nice face-off with the Bucks and FTR, and the crowd reacted big. This crowd in Bridgeport, I mean, they were pretty amped throughout most of the episode.
Totally agree, yeah.
And so O'Reilly and Fish then interject here. FTR tosses Nick Jackson out, and it comes down to the final 6 here. This is after Tully is trying to assist Cash Wheeler, and John Silver reverses, sending Cash over the top rope. So our final 6 are O'Reilly, Trent, Santana, Matt Jackson, Silver, and Dax Harwood. And I just thought O'Reilly looked awesome in here. He had this sequence with John Silver. That was a lot of fun. And then him and Dax Harwood, they were great together in this match. And then this was one of my favorite parts of the match was Santana and Trent just have this stare down. And dude, this crowd, they instantly understand and remember the history and the parking lot brawl. And it takes them like 3 seconds and then they all go nuts because of the history. And I think that's just awesome when your crowd in the arena without any prompting from the announcers immediately know what this means and the callback to a match that happened like a year and a half ago.
I was honestly a little surprised that, I think anytime you do one of these, it's a bit of a risk. I mean, depending on how popular and how much talked about perhaps the feud is. Anytime you do a stare down, you're relying on the audience to remember. And I guess I underestimated how much people remember this parking lot brawl as a significant moment in both of these teams' careers, and it really was when you think about it. But
it was an one of the best main events in Dynamite's history. But we see so many of them that we're talking like a significant amount of time too, and this crowd, like, they all reacted big to this.
Yes,
or at least enough of them reacted that it felt like most of the arena.
What is the limit, would you say, like of people who could pull off a bit like this, looking at each other without saying anything and relying on the crowd to recognize and react?
What's the limit?
How small of a feud can they possibly attempt something like this with and actually get a significant reaction?
Well, if they had Brandon Cutler and Peter Avalon cross paths,
that would work.
Once again,
I think that would work on.
I think it would too. So I don't know. I don't know what the limit is. So Trent and Santana fight on the edge until Matt Jackson and O'Reilly boot them off. So they're gone. Huge Johnny Hungy chance. He was incredibly popular. And then we get more of Dax and O'Reilly. They battle on the edge, and then Bobby Fish, who had been eliminated, sneaks up to nail Dax, and he's gone. Silver powers up, but he's caught with a super kick. And together, Matt Jackson and Kyle O'Reilly come together for super kicking the dragon. No? Okay. Kyle O'Reilly is selling his shoulder, and he tells Matt to go after Silver, and he does. He goes to toss Silver out, and then O'Reilly comes from behind and throws out Matt. This won about 20 minutes or so. Kyle O'Reilly wins, and Red Dragon are one of the teams that will be challenging Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy at the pay-per-view. But I thought this was like a pretty entertaining battle royal, and especially when it got down to the final 6.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the match only really started, once we got down to the final six, because otherwise, it's usually just a bit of a scramble of bodies, and I unless it's a Royal Rumble style where I think you get the allure of like seeing surprise entrants from time to time. Battle royals are, I mean, they're just kind of like, it is sort of insignificant to me until you get to the end, and that's how this kind of felt to me. I thought ultimately it was a good way to drive continued descent between the Bucks and Red Dragon. Like you mentioned, Kyle O'Reilly definitely stood out here. So yeah, it was, as a way to start Rampage. Were you surprised that they went here rather than what they seem to be doing with like the hotter singles match?
Yeah, I think it's always worth it. You try different things. Like this did have like the star power of the Bucks immediately, and yeah, we'll see. Like this is a number this week where I think a lot of people are going to be focused to see if last week was just a blip or if it is something more sustained than that. And a lot of times it's going to come down to, the strength of your lead in, but at the same time, holding that audience throughout the show. And this at least started it with, a battle royal that did have some stakes attached to it. And you did have some stars in the match as well.
So what is the next week's battle royal going to be?
The Casino Battle Royale.
Oh, so that's going to be one with different entrances and different,
yeah,
groups.
Where we'll have the groups entering.
But it's the same people?
Well, we saw that like the Bucks are re-entering next week, and I mean this was a huge portion of your tag division, so I'd imagine we're going to see a lot of repeats in the match next week.
Okay, interesting.
The Young Bucks were pissed as Red Dragon and the Young Bucks argued afterward, and then Hangman Page's music played, and he comes down and attacks Fish and O'Reilly. Adam Cole appears from behind, and he goes for a super kick, but Page catches him, and he goes for a buckshot lariat. Fish and O'Reilly pull Cole to the floor, and then John Silver returns with a senton off the apron to Red Dragon, and O'Reilly stumbles into the ring where he is the one that gets nailed with the buckshot lariat. So a pretty hot post-match here with Page's involvement coming essentially to back up the Young Bucks here and kind of draw attention to that and then set up this promo segment after it.
Part of me kind of wishes it was like Fish that took that buckshot, just because like I think Kyle looked so good coming off of the Battle Royal. He was the one who won the Battle Royal that, to at least give him a bit of that luster coming out of it and through the week at least might have been a bit better to me. And Fish is, I think, sort of like the default fall guy of the team, but whatever. It's fine. This feud I think is on a good path.
If you go back and watch O'Reilly on the aisleway after taking the buckshot and his facial expression selling that move, it was pretty tremendous.
Okay, so worth it then.
Worth it for that visual, I thought. But Paige takes the microphone and says, "Who's ready for story time with Adam Page, baby?" And he goes back to 2008 when a smug prick named Adam Cole entered the industry and would become a champion everywhere he went. And now he has come to AEW for his title, and he doesn't realize that he's walking closer and closer to a 6-foot hole. And he took one step too close to the grave, and then the better Adam laid him down in it. And the world will listen to the sound of his spine hitting the dirt from a freshly cocked buckshot, and that sound was boom. Cole seemed very disturbed by this story.
Me?
No, Adam Cole.
Oh, sure. Yeah, he's talking about his death. That is scary.
That's a stipulation for Revolution. You should really establish that stipulation if this is like to the death.
Or buried alive. Through death.
I mean that kind of coincides with death usually, but not in pro wrestling. Pro wrestling, that just means a 3-month vacation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool promo. Sure.
Shivani is with Bryan Danielson, and he says that Daniel Garcia reminds him of a young version of himself, vicious and violent, but I had a great mentor in William Regal, and he's hanging out with 2.0. Imagine if he trained with someone like me or Jon Moxley. He'd be at a different level, and I'm going to show him what that difference is tonight. And after I face Garcia, I will give Jon Moxley his answer. So this was going to be the main event, which did not get announced until late in the day. So this was one of those Dynamites where they did not They did not advertise the main event match with much lead time.
Yeah, which is kind of unlike the show, but we'll see how it did.
And then out comes MJF, and he is being drowned out by chants of CM Punk, and he brings up the photograph that Punk referenced last week and said how for Punk it was just another Friday, but it wasn't another Friday for him. At one point, a lot of you fans may not realize, but what got me out of bed in the morning was professional wrestling. I loved wrestling. I love AEW. And in 2007, I was 11 years old and I had severe ADD. And the one good thing that I was good at was football. And I made the football team at my school. I finally fit in. And the next day I'm walking the halls when I see some of my teammates and they looked angry. And they all had rolls of quarters and proceeded to throw them at me as hard as they could. And then mocking him for being Jewish and got him to cry. And he went home and he cried. But then he realized it's Friday and I get to go meet my hero, CM Punk, tonight. And he made a promise after he met CM Punk at that autograph signing that he would be just like him and become the best in the world. And then we go to December of 2013. MJF has gotten bigger. He's gotten stronger. He's got football scholarships, but all he wants to do is be a pro wrestler. He studies tapes. He practices promos in the mirror for hours and hours. And 1 month later, January 2014, you leave me. I went to college. I quit on my dreams. I buried my happiness until one day, seeing a photo of you shaking Bryan Danielson's hand on Instagram. And I was livid that you left. And I promised that I was now going to become the best in the world in spite of you, Punk. And I promise to the kids at home that are being bullied now that I will not quit like you did on me. I will fight you, Punk, in this dog collar match, but I will not quit because then I would be no better than you. Dude, this guy is in tears by the end of this. Of the pantheon of MJF performances, this one is going to rank exceptionally high.
Yeah, completely agreed. Yeah. It was a very unexpected direction that he took this program tonight. We're so used to MJF, of course, coming out and cutting scathing promos on the city that he's wrestling in or his opponents. He came out here and basically gave us, if this was your first episode watching Dynamite and you hadn't seen MJF before, you would think that he was the biggest babyface on this show because it was incredibly captivating and incredibly sympathetic. I heard, at least from a mutual one of our contributors who is Jewish and happened to completely feel like MJF was telling their life story, going through a lot of the same traumas that he went through, and it almost it was so good that it almost had me a little concerned at the start because I was expecting the swerve, as I think we all were, right? Anytime MJF, a heel like him takes us towards this direction, but at least this week it didn't come. I was concerned that he was going to use all of this to feel trivial by the end, but it didn't. Maybe eventually, of course, it's all leading to the program, but at least tonight he's definitely doing his best to think that he was, telling the truth, and I don't doubt that he was. What I love the most though was seeing Punk come out and seeing his reaction and him being concerned that, hey, is my enemy actually being serious? Am I somehow the source of all of this terrible behavior that's been coming from him? So it's a level of depth that I certainly wasn't expecting this program to get into.
I think this was a really fascinating segment for many reasons. Number one is that had this just been revealed as bullshit at the end of this segment, I think it would have just been like it was almost too great of a promo to just have the just kidding at the end of it, that I thought it was so much stronger. By coming out of this, you're left with that. Like, that is, you are CM Punk at the end of this segment, where Punk comes out and is asking, is this true? And MJF just says, it is true. And he leaves. And the camera is on MJF and you're watching. It's like, is there going to be a smirk? Is there going to be any kind of sign? And you're left with this, either this is this really heartfelt story where it's very hard to have anything but sympathy for this despicable character, or this guy lying? And then it's like, what an awful manipulation of your fans. I thought either direction, that's compelling stuff to me. Like, that's a really like level of depth that we don't often get with a program like this, where I think many people thought, here's a program that's clearly working. It's clicking on all levels. We're going into this violent match. MJF is just going to bleed buckets and get his comeuppance at the end. And now it just seems like it just takes on a different level of significance. And I can't quite put my finger on it, but I'm really compelled by it. I thought that this was just another home run segment in a series of like last week was incredible, and this was another one.
So I completely agree with you on all of those points. How do you think they'll follow up on this? And in what way, like, would a CM Punk respond? And how do they get from this, to us wanting to see them beat the shit out of each other?
Yeah, I think for certain, like, next week has to be like a Punk promo, and it can't be last week's promo that's just promising violence on this individual. Like, it has to be, I think Punk almost has to be in the role of this guy that is taking this person at their word, even though all his past actions should be the opposite of it. And maybe it's like Punk having to like justify the fact that that's awful, but my life choice to take care of my life and leave an industry that had corrupted me, I cannot bear the guilt that you're putting on me on top of it. Like, you can go in many different directions here, but it's also one that has to lead to a very violent match in theory at the pay-per-view. So, I mean, you could do what is maybe the most expected, and there's some little clue in MJF's promo that where he leaves, like, something doesn't add up that he mentioned that is called out on, that exposes the story, or we're left like, this is like, it's a more difficult story to tell, but like, all of this is true, and you're left conflicted here. Like, you are rooting for Punk, but this is a very sympathetic story that you can get behind.
It really is, yeah. Because I think so many people, I'm assuming, have been able to identify with it and feel it. I think it would be really cheap to just simply do the gotcha guys last week, next week, and just kind of go back to status quo for MJF. So I love the idea, though, that like this is real, very much for MJF, and these traumas are, I mean, this was essentially his super villain origin story that he told tonight. So I would love it if they'd be able to find a way to retain that as part of the character, as part of the feud, while at the same time somehow making both men justified in wanting to beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah, and especially, like, I think regardless, it does lay the groundwork that there will be a time that this guy is going to be the biggest babyface in this company.
Oh, no doubt.
So I thought this was just a phenomenal segment involving these two. Shivani is with Garcia and 2.0, and Lee and Parker take issue with Danielson's critique of them as trainers. And Garcia says, I don't need a lesson in violence, continuing to set up tonight's main event. Malachi Black and Brody King against Pac, and Penta with his updated look as he comes out in the black mask that had been introduced in the feature 2 weeks ago, and the way he was identified was Penta Oscuro, which is Pentagon Dark in Spanish.
Yeah, similar character he portrayed in Lucha Underground, and they basically said
complete with like Alex Abrahantes here playing the role of Vampiro.
Right. Yeah. They basically said, yeah, this is the dark, the more demonic version of Pentagon. Carry on. I would assume the same lineage from other promotions.
Yeah, Abrahantes is in the whole like priest getup from that Vampiro wore for the match with Pentagon, and they bring a shovel to the ring, and they start on the floor. Pac hits a 450 to Malachi Black. We go through the break. There's a spot where Brody King lifts Pac onto the shoulders of Penta, chops Pac, and forces him to give a poison Rana to Pentagon, which this is crazy timing because this just happened to me the other day when I was on the street, and I ended up knocking someone onto the other guy's shoulders, and then I chopped him, and the guy did a whole poison Rana right there on the street. It was crazy.
Somehow the ropes, John, and the bounciness of that ring like affects physics in a weird way where, I mean, you drag a guy's arm into those ropes, they bounce back full force. I mean, who knows?
These guys inadvertently created the ultimate counter to the Doomsday Device. I mean, how did all those people take those clotheslines and not have this counter ready?
Right. You're right. Sure. It must have been some special chop for Brody King here.
Pac saved Penta from Dante's Inferno, and then they're setting up for the Fear Factor into the foot stomp, but Malachi Black goes to spray the black mist, but before he can get it out of his mouth, Penta covers up his mouth and then rolls up Malachi for the win, and Jim Ross is suggesting that Malachi Black has swallowed the black mist.
Yeah, always a danger. You're
Yes.
going to miss somebody.
So after the match, after the loss, King attacks both of them, and then Black knocks Abrahantes down and gets the shovel. And he is selling the effects of this black goo that has gone down into his digestive system, and lifts the shovel over the throat of Penta when the lights go out. And when they come on, Buddy Matthews is in the ring. Big pop for his arrival, and they refer to the history between Black and Matthews in the past. He's circling around. He's staring down Malachi Black, but then he attacks Pac and Penta. Brody King wipes out all of the security members on the floor, and then Black has Buddy curb stomp Penta onto the chair, and Black just puts his arms around the updated version of the House of Black that now have 3 members, and when the lights go out again, they come on, and Pac is the one who's down, and Penta, I guess, recovered from this curb stomp. He's the one checking on Pac.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot happened here.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. Feels like every week we're getting a bit of a new debut here, and this week it was Buddy Murphy. Yeah. First of
Matthews now. I think Murphy has been retired.
You're right. Yeah. I'm kind of surprised that he didn't retire Buddy as well, because if I had my way and I could get a fresh start, I think I'm getting rid of Buddy first instead of Murphy. Neither of those names are really that cool. But it looks like he's going to be Buddy Murphy here, Buddy Matthews here, and I think as a fit in this company, I mean, his style is really perfect for it. He was a great fit in New Japan, and he'd be a great fit for this division. I love the inverted Kamigoye stomp into the chair. It looks really cool. Combines his old move with the Seth Rollins stomp, and what about Pentagon Obscuro? Penta
Obscuro, yes.
Obscuro, yeah. I mean, the look is great. The entrance is awesome. But, like with many of these sort of like dual identity types of wrestlers, I don't know if I'm seeing enough difference in in-ring style yet between, the regular Pentagon and this guy. So, remains to be seen. He did get the win, though.
He did get the win on Malachi Black, so that was something.
I thought he was going to bring back the arm break.
Yeah, I mean, I think the crowd would go pretty. The difficulty with that arm break is that when they first introduced it, it was like the idea that like you've broken a guy's arm, and to me, it's like it's got to be saved for when someone is going to go away for some time. And it got silly at the times in Lucha Underground where someone was back like the next week and recovered from the arm break. So it's like you can't really just bust it out for no reason, or else it kind of loses its effectiveness.
True.
But this one way, I just see them waiting out until Phoenix is ready to come back in the next month, and then we probably get like a big 6-man.
Yeah, it's a loaded stable right now in the House of Black. They got these 3 and Julia Hart, potentially.
Potentially, yes. So that's where we can want. Maybe we'll get Abrahantes on one side, Julia Hart on the other.
Yeah.
So Lots to come. And then they did put up the graphic that Buddy is all elite.
Cool.
We got promos from Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker. There will be a contract signing on Rampage, and Baker mentioning that the Lights Out match, it never counted. So on paper, she's never lost to Thunder Rosa. And then Eddie Kingston's out for our face-to-face with Eddie Kingston and Chris Jericho. And Jericho comes out to Judas, and Kingston has no time for the crowd singing along with this song. He's asking Jericho, why do we have security in the ring? And Jericho says he doesn't want to fight. He calls him a street thug. And Kingston he explains, I'm not a sports entertainer, and this isn't a sports entertainment company. Can we maybe get like Willow Nightingale and Chris Statlander out here to wrestle? And says, if you want a sports entertainment company, go down the block. And that got a big reaction, as this was their AEW's first show in Connecticut. And Jericho is booed when he mentions Stamford. And he's going to tell Eddie Kingston a story. He is going to do some sports entertaining, but it'll actually be entertaining. And he says that when Eddie Kingston came to AEW, everyone in the locker room was so excited that he was here, except for him. He didn't know who Eddie Kingston was. He thought maybe they meant Eddie Edwards was coming. And then he saw Eddie Kingston and realized the reason I didn't know who you were is because you look like a jobber. Then I saw your match against what's his name? You familiar with what's his name, Way?
Yeah, I believe I know what's his name. I mean, I didn't take this as any sort of like, company direction, and just maybe more so Jericho kind of making.
I'm sure this was Jericho just not naming he's not here. We're not doing anything with him. So why drop his name?
And I think kind of smart, because mentioning Cody would, I think, possibly lead to a chance or something that might derail the segment.
There was that chance. Like I don't think it would have happened. I think this was like a compelling enough segment, but you drop Cody's name, and I guess there's that possibility. Takes
focus away, but I mean this did anyway.
This could have also led to a Cody chant if the fans heard it, but nonetheless there wasn't. It wasn't like anything. It was just what it was. And then after the match, a very hard fought match with what's his name prevailing, he heard Eddie Kingston's promo and realized this guy is really good. And he told Eddie, one day you're going to be a huge babyface. And I was right. Kingston was so great reacting to Jericho. He's in the corner just taking this.
So good.
What's a babyface? Dude, Eddie Kingston was just tremendous here with his one-liners. Like, the guy is just so quick on his feet. And Jericho continues and says how Kingston got over his physical and mental issues and signed a contract at the age of 38. And everyone was happy except me, because I don't give two shits about your sob story. I know that you're jealous of me because it took you until you were 38 to make it big. I was in the big time at the age of 22. And he lists off all of the things he had done by the time he was 38 years old. He says, Kingston, you can't achieve what I have or be at my level. Kingston says, the reason you headlined in all these places, Chris, is because I wasn't there. I don't lie. I don't act like a carny. I do things my way, and I'm going to be me until I die. Do you want to fight at Revolution? Jericho's response, maybe the greatest response to any challenge in the history of pro wrestling, was not a yes or no to this fight at Revolution. He said, Eddie, have you ever heard of the word achievemophobia? Eddie says, no, I haven't. I've got a GED. Dude, this place laughed. This was like the most genuine laughter you've ever heard from a wrestling crowd reacting to this. As Chris explains that achievemophobia, which I will profess I had never heard of and literally looked this up, is being terrified to make it to the top because you would fall instantly and your destiny is one of failure. I've read about your family's history, how your first hero was your uncle, and he was a failure. You believed in your own father. He turned out to be a failure. And deep down, you know you're a failure. Eddie, you can't win the big one. And in this company, I'm the big one. Not Moxley, not Danielson, not Punk, not even the AEW champion. I am. And he accepts his challenge for Revolution. And if I lose to you, Eddie, I will truly respect you. And Kingston says, listen, Chris, at Revolution, I don't want the Chris Jericho that fell into a mimosa or fell off the cage at Blood and Guts. I want the one that won the AEW title, that gained the respect of my hero Tenryu in War, that bled in Tennessee, that turned WCW upside down, and the one that your friend Paul Levesque hated. Because if not, if you don't bring that Chris Jericho, I'm going to eat you alive. And Jericho ends the promo saying, I have the same opinion as I know you do. You're a loser, Eddie, and you're never going to win the big one.
Magnificent segment. Magnificent. The MJF promo was great. And between that and this, I mean, you had really a stellar Dynamite full of great speaking. And I think it's totally dependent on maybe which one you relate more to when you want to say which one was the better. But they were both stellar. I thought this was absolutely great. It felt incredibly organic and raw, very loose, not necessarily, hey, you talk, I talk, you know. It felt like a conversation. Sometimes they were stepping over each other. You had a lot of ad-libbing, I think, from Eddie Kingston mainly, but like it felt real. It felt like it was two masters who in the back just decided to go, let's call it in the ring. Except, you know, what they're calling is not a match, but a talking segment. It felt like there was so much reality in some of these words. Everything they said was believable. You know, Jericho, I think, hitting on the idea of jealousy being the reason why Eddie Kingston hates him so much, I think is wonderful because it's believable. So it seems like they are, somewhat getting away from the Santana Ortiz angle of like, you know, like for this whole thing started because it was like Eddie Kingston claiming that, oh, okay, Santana and Ortiz, you've been holding my boys down, basically, Jericho. But they're getting away from that and getting a bit deeper. Jericho is asking, well, why do you have such a problem with something that's none of your business? It's because you're jealous of me. And then Jericho gets into the Players Tribune article as a source of heat. And, you know, anyone who's read the article knows, I mean, what an accomplishment it really was for somebody like Eddie Kingston to be so publicly vulnerable with some of those sensitive topics. And for Jericho to use that, to turn it on him in this promo, immediately this crowd was, you know, like this feud really was made. I felt, much like, you know, with MJF getting into some of that subject matter, I felt that there was a chance when Jericho brought this up that it could have been cringy, could have been distasteful if it was simply brought up for heat. But I thought Jericho was able to frame it and handle it in a way that felt like it was almost like he was presenting a challenge for Eddie Kingston to overcome, rather than just, you know, strictly bring something up to put him down with. And I feel like this is, you know, this hero's journey that now we're all set on. Can Eddie Kingston overcome the challenges that he set up for himself, you know, that are very real for him? Eddie Kingston, you know, the article is titled, I got no fucking business being here. And Jericho is really the perfect opponent for him because Jericho's whole career has been the antithesis of that. Jericho is somebody who I think some would say is overconfident, who has gotten to his position because he calls himself the king of the world. You know, he thinks he le champion. It's like it's bravado that is almost like more than, I mean, the guy absolutely deserves it, of course, but almost like he even takes it a step further. So it especially works because you saw Kingston sell like every single one of these lines as Jericho brings up each family member. You know, you saw within Eddie Kingston how much he wanted to beat the shit out of this guy. So man, I thought it was like a segment that I think not just elevated, of course, Eddie Kingston, but elevated Chris Jericho back into the conversation. You know, him bringing up him actually being the man ahead of Mox and Bryan and Punk. And yeah, he's really kind of fallen by the wayside since those guys have ascended. But a promo like this, it's going to make Eddie Kingston perform at his best, but it's also going to force Jericho to perform at his best because shit like GFY is not going to cut it. You know, when you're talking about an Eddie Kingston feud that demands real, and it's going to, I think, have to force Jericho to be, you know, that much more authentic, that much more gritty, and more so than, you know, many of his opponents have demanded.
Yeah, I thought that this was like, you know, it put just Jericho. I think the emotion you wanted is like by the end of this, you just wanted to see Eddie Kingston kick this guy's ass, and I think that's like such a strong dynamic to have coming out. Like that is the point of like a segment that you want to pay to see this match. You want to see this guy get his comeuppance
and overcome his own inner issues.
Yeah, and you also, I think, like, that last face-to-face with Kingston and Punk was just such a strong segment, and I think you did want to differentiate this one, and it was like they did kind of, piggyback off like Eddie Kingston's look, for instance, but I think this one, it really zoned in on that Players Tribune article and going into different areas. I would have, like, since you did have the security there, I think for that reason, I think I would have wanted like just a bit more of a vision. Like when Jericho is dropping like lines about his uncle and his father, it's like you're expecting Eddie Kingston to punch this guy in the face and not have any kind of restraint. That I think you would have wanted like the security to be that literal barrier, that it makes Jericho even more despicable, that you have all the confidence to say something like that when you have this protection, and the pay-per-view you will not.
Yeah. I mean, visually, I think it could have added to it. For me, though, like, I don't know if you could have done much to make this even better. Like, to me, it did hit that note where, like, I do want to see this guy beat the shit out of the other person, just strictly through their talking. So, but yeah, I definitely think there were some, you could have improved it in a number of ways, but I thought the note that they did hit was really high.
Yeah, I thought Jericho was very good here, just in terms of like having the confidence in everything that he's saying. Like, this does not feel like someone that is just reciting lines to build up a program. Like, he is bringing up all like everything he said about Eddie Kingston coming in. I'm sure that is completely true. I'm sure that he thought, oh, are they talking about Eddie Edwards? Like, I think that like he is a guy that draws from real life. Like that's the basis for his promos.
Both of them,
yes. But anyway, so there you go. Eddie Kingston and Chris Jericho, the latest addition to the pay-per-view. And then we got another match added because we go to the AHFO's official stairwell, and Sammy Guevara will be facing Andrade on Rampage on Friday. Andrade says he doesn't need anyone in his corner, and Matt's response is, let's have a Tornado Trios match at the pay-per-view with you, me, and Isaiah Cassidy against Sting, Sammy Guevara, and Darby Allin. And I think Andrade was probably thinking, huh? Okay.
Yeah. I'll be honest, like, I was so busy collecting my thoughts for that last segment, I just decided to tune this completely out. I just didn't have time for the HFO's shenanigans.
Well, we have all these ideas about like the TNT title picture. It's gonna be a trios tornado match, which will probably be, I guess it's something. I don't know what to say about it. It's such a
I don't
weird...
care. Like, I want Jeff Hardy to come in. I want Matt to team with Jeff. Great, sure. And I want Andrade to face Darby. That's it. Like, let's fuck off with the rest of this stuff.
Ricky Starks and Preston Vance qualifying match for the Face of the Revolution match. Taz is on commentary. They went through the picture-in-picture. Vance applied the full Nelson, but then he released it to shove Starks into the corner. The announcers were not sure why he did that. So then he goes to reapply it. Starks pulls at the mask, breaks free, spears Vance, and he qualifies and is in the ladder match. So we have two Team Taz members along with Powerhouse Hobbs in the match.
Yeah, I would say the first non-super heavyweight to enter the match, and interesting that they decided to put Vance in the match, because I would imagine maybe at least some people thought, oh, maybe Vance has a chance if they're going to go for an all super heavyweight ladder match, but no, it's going to be Starks, and it gives Team Taz the interesting man advantage.
Michael Cole, Adam Cole, and Red Dragon were confronted by, I would love Red Dragon.
Michael Cole in AEW.
Hey,
Michael Cole versus Paige.
He couldn't be Michael Cole, though.
Oh. I mean, it is his real name, is it not?
No,
Wait, it's not. You're right.
No.
They own Michael Cole? Wow.
Yeah, I don't think he...
What is his real name?
It's like, his last name is like Coulthard. Is it Sean?
Sean Coulthard. Damn. Wow. Yeah. That just doesn't work at all.
Well... Adam Cole and Red Dragon are confronted by the Young Bucks, who call that a double cross out there. O'Reilly says, I blacked out. The Bucks will have another chance next week, and they're motivated to win the Casino Battle Royale to kick their asses at the pay-per-view. And Adam Cole is all pissed that the two teams are not getting along because he needs to focus on Hangman. So trouble in paradise. Jade Cargill and the Bunny for the TBS Championship. Cargill worked over the arm and shoulder early on. She was applying a hammerlock. The Bunny hits this running strike to the neck and a Russian leg sweep, sending Cargill into the guardrail. They go through the break. Matt Hardy comes out. He's doing the delete mannerism at Mark Sterling. And then Bunny rakes the eyes, gets caught and hit with a spine buster. And then Matt Hardy slides the brass knuckles to the Bunny. Sterling slides the TBS Championship to Jade. And Jade knocks the brass knuckles away from the Bunny using the title. Hardy's ejected. And then there's a roll up by the Bunny. And when Jade kicks out, dude, this crowd was believing that the Bunny was going to end this undefeated streak. They went nuts for this near fall. I was stunned.
It surprised me. And I mean, I do preface that, like, a lot of the match took place in commercial break, and I just can't pay attention to, a silent area of wrestling in a tiny box when I have, like, fucking Players Casino, like, that ad, John, that they are.
Dude,
I can't.
I've got to mute the commercials now because they play that same goddamn ad like 50 times during AEW. Like TSN has like an inventory of like 6 ads, and we get them nonstop. And that specific one is just
so bad.
It's just alarmingly loud.
It's aggravating. Yeah.
And then Tony Bet. I don't care about Tony Bet.
What about when George St. Pierre tells you to that he plays to win? Yeah, like, is it just like gambling sites that, like, play advert? I say this, and maybe we're running some of those ads on our thing too. But God, like, anyway, that's all to say that, like, much of this match took place in commercial, and so they must have had quite the match during commercial break, because when they came back, this crowd was really hot.
So Jade kicks out. There's a super kick by the Bunny, and she goes for down the rabbit hole. It's countered, hits Jaded, and she wins. It got a big reaction for the ending here. 28-0, and Cargill retains the TBS Championship. I'm not going to say this was like a stellar match or anything, but man, this crowd really got into it, and the fact that they bit to such a degree on that near fall is an achievement here.
Absolutely, yeah. Again, I can't really comment on the match itself, but I mean, I can say by the end, it felt like a total success. And this crowd certainly sees Jade Cargill as a star.
Schiavone gets in the ring to interview Jade, who steals the microphone. Cut the shit, Tony. Who's next? Or should I say, who's left? And Ty Conti walks out, and she says, I'm going to be the one that's going to beat your ass at Revolution. Comes into the ring, gets into her face, and then Bunny returns to attack Conti, and then gets hit with the Thai KO, and Jade lays her out with a pump kick. Anna Jay runs down with a chair to save her partner. And we have yet another match at Revolution. They were just flying in terms of match announcements on the show.
They're now starting to, put up on the screens every time Jade wins. I mean, really promoting the fact that she's undefeated. So it's up to 28-0 now. They are making their own little Goldberg here and fully committing to it, and not being afraid of, the idea that one day she's not going to have this streak and what's going to be left. And I don't think they have anything to be afraid of, because I think her star power is, and her potential is big enough that, like, it can, she's not going to be Ludwig Borga, right? But yeah, who, you always have to think who's going to be the one to actually break it. Like, if you had your pick of people on the roster, who could you see, John, right now?
I mean, I think it should be somebody that is kind of when, like, someone on the rise, when you have somebody that is, you're ready to really, like, I would not put like a Baker or a Thunder Rosa or one of your established women, and maybe they don't even have like a person in mind yet. It could be a very long time before we're looking at this, but it's going to make, like, just by doing this, like when she's on the cusp of getting to like 50-0 or 100-0, like that's going to be a big deal that you can promote. It's the thing with, like, it's the UFC rule that, they just kept on with those numbers forever. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're almost at UFC 100. And the show was going to be massive just because of people's, like, just amazement at, like, numbers that ended in 0. And it's just like a great marketing trick.
It's, yeah. And I mean, actually, it's going to be a real legitimate counter about the number of matches that Jade Cargill has actually had.
Yes.
Is it not?
Yeah.
Like, this, she's only had 28 matches, and she's 28-0, I believe. So we'll be celebrating not just maybe, a milestone in the streak, but actually in her actual career.
Well, she's like a veteran compared to some of the NXT 2.0 people.
Yeah.
So then Marvez is with Keith Lee, and Starks and Hobbs walk in explaining that Team Taz runs things here. We don't care where you came from. It only matters what you've done here, so mind your P's and Q's. And Hobbs had a brief stare down, and Keith Lee did not look impressed with these two. So obviously all of them will be part of the ladder match at the pay-per-view next weekend. Big rundown of the cards coming up. Rampage will have Orange Cassidy and Anthony Bowens in another qualifying match for the ladder match. Serena Deeb's 5-minute challenge, the contract signing between Baker and Rosa, and Sammy Guevara against Andrade for the TNT title. Next Wednesday, Dynamite is back at Daly's Place with the Casino Battle Royale and a 6-man tag with Hangman, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds against Adam Cole and Red Dragon. And then they made the announcement that May 25th, there will be a live Dynamite and then a live Rampage on May 27th, both from Las Vegas at the Michelob Ultra Arena at Mandalay Bay, which will be Double or Nothing weekend, and Double or Nothing will be on Sunday the 29th at the T-Mobile Arena. So they are moving up from the MGM Grand going to the T-Mobile Arena. So that's a as a giant arena that they are running.
Yeah. So capacity. What has WWE done there for T-Mobile?
I don't know when the last time was that they ran T-Mobile, because the last time they were in Vegas, they were at Allegiant Stadium.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, this is not that one. But I mean, it seems like basketball like 1,800, boxing MMA about 20,000. So yeah, that's pretty significant.
Yeah. It's like MGM is like 11,000, I think. So, but it's. It's a huge Vegas weekend. I think they're going to do well that weekend in Vegas.
Curious about ticket prices, because I mean Vegas is sort of a place where you can get away with charging a lot, and AEW. I mean, it seems like they've undervalued their pay-per-views recently.
And then the main event: Bryan Danielson and Daniel Garcia. This match was awesome. Danielson and Garcia. This was the most engaged I've ever been for a picture-in-picture. I was watching everything, dude. Right. Like I love this match. You
were sitting through the bet more.
Well, I hit mute and I'm just watching the match, so I don't have to listen to the ad. Right. So it starts off. There's a butterfly suplex into an armbar, and just like great transitions here. Danielson is able to get him. He goes for the label lock, and Garcia prevents it by getting his hand up to prevent the crossface, and then is able to get to the rope and then chop blocks Danielson's knee. This is when they go to the break. They continue to work on the ground. Danielson puts him up in the corner and, dude, rifles a kick into his chest, and then another kick that just drills him. Chops by Danielson. Garcia catches the leg into a dragon screw, keeps going back to the knee. At one point, they're both like going for leg locks, and they're in like 50-50 and nailing each other with heel strikes. Danielson is out, hits a tiger suplex, and from there moves to cattle mutilation. Garcia turns it over and reverts to an ankle lock. They engage in a Greco-Roman knuckle lock, and while gripping one another, they're hitting each other with forearms. Dragon screw gets blocked by Danielson, who in blocking it gets hold of the wrists and stomps down and then applies the triangle, putting Daniel Garcia to sleep.
And the triangle was an immediate like pass out.
Yeah, this was not like finish. The struggle or checking the arm. It's like it was locked. He was out. I really enjoyed that Lee Moriarty match last week, but man, this one was even better. This was one of my favorite TV matches in the longest time. I love this match.
Yeah. I mean, they had time. They had. How long was this, John? Did you get a time?
It was. I didn't have the exact time here. Actually, Cena would have it in his report. It was like under 15.
Right. Okay. Yeah. They
10:22.
10. Yeah. I was gonna say, like, I mean, I think there definitely is a better version of this on pay-per-view, or even at an indie show where they can go maybe 15 to 20 or possibly even longer. But for a 10-minute TV match, this was very satisfying, a wonderful preview of what might be to come in both of their futures. I think it was just the type of wrestling that both men happen to excel at. Bryan Danielson, somebody who's just really building perhaps his reputation in this style, and Daniel Garcia, who's built his reputation on this style, and the two of them meeting together, master versus student, and telling a very good master versus student story where the maybe we could say black belt. Yeah, I don't know, five stripe. Master manages to defeat the perhaps purple. And yeah, it was fantastic. I love the finish. Felt very realistic, and it's going to make that triangle feel that much more significant next time.
Yes. So Bryan Danielson, a main eventer, 20 years after he headlined the very first ROH show on a night when Daniel Garcia was 3 years old.
Jesus, wow. Ouch. That's an insult to all of us who were alive then. 3 years old? Yes. God damn.
I mean, Julia Hart was zero.
Stop it now.
She was like 3 months old.
Oh, God, stop it. Hey, Chris Daniels was in the back, I bet. Was he not?
Yes.
Also part of that main event?
Yes, I don't think Loki was probably on site, but yes, Daniels would have likely been there.
On that note, I mean, Sean Ross Sapp did report that Jonathan Gresham was backstage at tonight's show.
Right, yeah, and that's with Terminus tomorrow as well.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously didn't make an appearance on the show tonight, so I don't know, makes you wonder.
Yeah, certainly. It just seems like it's man, you just wonder where all these different people can fit in, and that's the ultimate juggling act.
Maybe he was just there to film footage for Terminus, like with Santana or something. I don't know.
Well, who knows? I'm intrigued to see that match tomorrow with Santana and Jonathan Gresham on the follow up to Terminus. But before we wrap this up, the post match saw Danielson get onto the microphone and said that's exactly what he wanted to see, and asks, was Garcia violent enough tonight? And before the crowd can answer, 2.0 jumps him. So Jon Moxley comes out, kills Lee and Parker, and Garcia has a chair from behind, and he goes to strike Moxley when Danielson stops him, and Moxley turns around, paradigm shift on Garcia, and then Danielson grabs the microphone, and they're just looking at each other as the crowd chants, "This is awesome." And Danielson says, "I don't need a chair to make anyone bleed," and accepts the match for Revolution and tells Moxley not to be surprised if you're the only one bleeding.
Yeah. So ready for this match. And I mean, this card really is shaping up to be, I mean, really a must-see match.
Yeah.
You know,
we should go over the
card, I should say.
Yeah, coming out of this is the updated card. So we now have 8 matches for the pay-per-view. So it's pretty loaded at this point. Maybe like a few small additions, but the bulk of the key stuff is all there. So Hangman Page and Adam Cole for the AEW title, Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa for the women's title, Punk and MJF dog collar match, Jericho versus Eddie Kingston, Bryan Danielson against Jon Moxley, the triple threat for the AEW tag titles with Jurassic Express, Red Dragon, and whoever wins next week's Battle Royal, Keith Lee, Wardlow, Powerhouse Hobbs, Ricky Starks, and then the winner of Cassidy and Bowens, and one more member for the ladder match. And then Andrade, Matt Hardy, and Isaiah Cassidy against Sting, Sammy Guevara, and Darby Allin in a Trios Tornado tag team match.
I think we know what match is going to be a part of the pre-show from that roster, you know, unless it could be a way to introduce a Jeff Hardy, I suppose. But it looks like a really, really stacked card. I mean, I'm assuming Bucks will probably take that last spot.
I think that's a given at this point, unless there's some extenuating storyline reason, but I cannot see, like, that's the whole angle is Red Dragon and the Bucks. So I would think that's the match. When you
add that name on top of, like, you know, a show that already has Punk versus MJF and I mean, Page versus Cole. The thing is, Page versus Cole, like, it kind of feels like it's third from the top, you know, in terms of, like, you know, fan interest, I'll say. But still, that match is going to be awesome. Moxley versus...
And probably has to close the show. It's probably got to follow all of this.
True, right. Mox versus Danielson, I mean, that... You know, that's totally amazing. And Jericho Kingston really taking a huge step up with that segment tonight.
Certainly. Yeah. This is shaping up to be quite the card next weekend. So there you go. That was Dynamite. I would say, you know, I've really grown to not grown to, but I just really enjoy these kind of last few episodes before the pay-per-view where we're getting all these big promos. Like, Dynamite is a show that focuses on a lot of wrestling, but man, when you get promos at this level that we're getting on a weekly basis, like, to me, that's the more significant stuff as you're getting closer to a pay-per-view, is selling people on the matches with these incredible promos that we're getting each week.
Completely agree. I mean, the matches are great, but like you don't have success and you don't have, full on promotion without great talking segments. And I mean, this show really had a bit of everything. Great main event, two excellent in-ring speaking segments that are well worth your time to view. And really the rest of the show really coming together pretty decently.
Let's read some feedback at forum.postwrestling.com. We'll start off with Shane McDonough. Hey guys, great show. I did think it was funny that Malachi Black was about to murder Penta with a shovel, but then totally abandoned using the shovel when Buddy Matthews showed up. I especially loved the MJF promo segment, and I find myself rooting for him now. Do you think this is planting the seeds of an MJF turn, or just a one-off for this specific feud? We discussed it pretty much during the recap, but like long term, I certainly think that there's going to be a substantial babyface run for MJF. And I think with this one, it's like there's many different layers of where you can go with this, of where you could just like you introduce this story and you don't have to necessarily like out it as being a lie from MJF. But now it's introduced and the character now has, as you put it, like this origin story that you can still remain in this heel role, but now you've like introduced something, or there is, exposing this guy's life story as fraudulent for the benefit of the fans, seeing him as just this absolutely despicable person that would lean on such a story.
Yeah, something is going to happen next week that I think will really complete, whatever the intent of tonight was. Do we get MJF's parents? They're going to out him. As the thing is, how do you what would that look like though? He can of course say, yeah, I lied. Yeah, I mean, I was never bullied. I was the one doing bullying. But I mean, that's after saying the stuff he said, that I think would be really cheap. And I mean, like cheap in a way that is almost distasteful for the show, right? So you know what he could just go for the jugular is when he says, Punk, I wanted to become the best in the world to spite you to an obsessive degree that I put out a tryout video for Tough Enough. Oh my.
Have you seen that?
I don't know. Was it?
This is when they did, it was when they brought back Tough Enough in 2015. No, 2015. Oh, okay. The one when Hogan got removed from the show. He cuts this awesome promo, and they did not pick that guy for Tough Enough.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, MJF, you mean? Yeah.
Yes.
I thought you meant Hogan.
No. I don't know if Hogan would get onto Tough Enough. Okay,
yeah, sorry. That might be such a deep cut that I'm not even aware of. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, it's interesting, Shane. Like Shane says, "Hey, I want to root for MJF now," and I don't think you're the only one feeling that way. And was that the intent? Ultimately, this has to lead to a match where I think you're supposed to want to see CM Punk beat MJF. So tonight's direction was totally caught me off guard, and I'm excited to see how they change course back to the direction that they were going next week. All right, we got a Johnny Sanchez who says, all right, the show tonight was fantastic, but I'm just going to focus on the main event. This is how you built the future. While Daniel Garcia lost, he was shown to be somewhat equal, same as Lee Moriarty last week. This is basically youth versus experience. The only reason they lost is because of the experience that Danielson has. Danielson might be winning, but he is spotlighting his opponents and trying to get most audiences to see what he does. The future is bright for the younger talent. We are 2 months in, and Danielson seems to be my lock for Wrestler of the Year if he continues with these matches. What wrestlers do you want to see Danielson work with? I really want to see that Gresham match with each passing week.
Yeah, but I also wouldn't want to just throw that one out cold. I would want to do some build up for it. I've got to say the best long-term story is Bryan Danielson, who has come back and reclaimed his own award in the Observer Awards after Zack Sabre Jr. had overtaken that award.
Completely. Absolutely. Yeah, he tweeted about it too. Feels nice.
Oh, did he? Danielson or Zach?
Danielson.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, very deserved, honestly. But I mean, that to me is probably the dream match of anybody I'm looking forward to the most is Zack Sabre Jr. versus Bryan Danielson on a big enough stage. But who else was it that Danielson mentioned in that promo besides, Garcia and Moriarty.
I can't remember all the names off the top of my head beyond those two.
Right. I mean, I'm assuming it's somebody of a similar style, more ground-based. So
maybe Moxley's going to bring in Umino.
I'd love to see that. Yeah.
Let's continue on with Vic here. Seeing the super villain origin story of MJF was as awesome as any comic book villain. It all makes sense now why his character is such a terrible person. This whole feud has been next level, and the thing I'm enjoying most in wrestling is Jericho picking up the Cody delusional heel gimmick, but actually being a heel. He'll be good in the role as long as he commits, unlike Cody did. What a waste of Sting, Darby, and Sammy at the pay-per-view. Just do a triple threat match and call it a day. Matt Hardy shouldn't be featured in a match at a pay-per-view unless he's being fed to Hook or teaming with Jeff. Well, yeah. I don't think Jeff will be available by March 6th.
He won't? What's his date?
Didn't we do this last week? I think it's like March 9th is his 90 days.
Okay, so the week after. Or the Wednesday after.
Right.
Okay. All right. Unless like somehow the release was announced after the actual release date.
I think like the math was like done from like the day it was confirmed he was released, where the 90 would start. But
was the confirmation date the date of actual release, or is there a possibility like behind the scenes he was released quietly?
I mean, as I recall, it was like the house show was like a Sunday, and it was like reported, I think, like the next day.
Oh, okay.
I don't think there was more than like a day of like lag time between the house show and the release.
Okay, gotcha. All right, we end things off here with Muggin, who says this was another good step forward towards Revolution. The Kingston Jericho War of Words was captivating. Jericho being the de facto heel and going somewhat meta by using Kingston's real life challenges intensified their feud. Danielson Garcia is another dope main event and another career highlight in Garcia's meteoric rise. Was MJF being completely truthful to Punk to lower his guard? The emotional content did enhance the promo. It was well done. Matthews' debut was solid, and Malachi Black's reaction told everything about their history with a single look. The opening battle royal was messy, but it got better when the field got to the home stretch. Buck's Red Dragon tension is coming to a head, and Cole is going to have to pick a side.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for the feedback. I think like the MJF thing was probably the most intriguing thing because everyone is left with like that question. That's the question they want you to have. You are supposed to have that lack of or multiple ways to read the promo. So I thought that was like a real big hit, providing it's
paid off.
It's paid off, and that it does make like, because you were going down like this solid path and everything was clicking, and you have like added a lot of depth to it, and hopefully that does not that doesn't take it off course or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that was Dynamite, and that is the end of the show. We're going to be back on Thursday live at 1 p.m. Eastern time, chatting all of the latest news coming out of today. What do you think we'll be talking about tomorrow?
I'm sure there are some stories that we didn't necessarily get to. Maybe we'll want to talk. I mean, maybe Jeff Hardy. Maybe at this point, like if he is coming to, can AEW even announce him if his 90 days aren't up?
I don't know how that all works, but
yeah, I don't think we'll see a graphic or anything, but I'm sure that'll be part of the talk.
For sure. So in the meantime, go check out postwrestling.com. News dropping every second. And yes, we will chat with you on Thursday. Reminder that coming up this weekend, we'll see the return of the NWA podcast with Nate, Chris, and Andrew Thompson. Looking forward to hearing from all three of those coming up this weekend. And speaking of Andrew Thompson, we have the latest edition of Bushby and Thompson's Wrestling Adventure coming out tomorrow on the British Wrestling Experience feed. He will be joined, of course, by co-host Martin Bushby as they welcome Eric Marcotte, huge, to talk Sudbury's finest, to talk about Bret the Hitman Hart, the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. The DVD release and documentary from what year was it, John? 2005 that they put this one out. This was the project that was originally going to be Screwed, the Bret Hart story. And then Bret got on board with WWE, and everyone logged into WWE.com that day to see Vince McMahon and Bret Hart shaking hands in a WWE studio. And then the project took a 180 and came out and ended up being one of the best DVDs that the company ever put out.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, between Andrew and Eric, I'm assuming both were 2 when that DVD actually came out. So we're gonna get a look back from both of those men who may be experiencing much of this just strictly off of the DVD and not in when Brett's actual career was active.
All right, so that show, subscribe to the British Wrestling Experience feed. You will get that show on Thursday. So that's it for us. Thanks to everybody for tuning in live or downloading the show afterwards. You're all tremendous people. Goodbye.